Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for turning up this evening. I know it's a very busy time with your holidays. I know some of you are working in the evenings and what have you, but we are introducing the IPGC and also the IPGC with IQTS. We've got people, four people presenting. Myself, John Woodbury, who runs IPGC.com and is also a coordinator here with the University of Derby. We also have Mark Upton, who will be talking from the perspective of a previous head of school, executive principal, and also a head of an education group here in China. We'll also have Chris Blackwell, who has done both the IPGC and the PGC with QTS, so he can give a good comparison about the two programs and how they match up. And then also speaking will also be Sophie as well, who is currently undertaking the IPGCE and started just back in May, so she can give a pretty good insight for somebody who has just started and what to expect. Okay, so next slide, please, Carl. So just a few ground rules. If you have any questions as we go along, please just type them into the chat function. The chat function will allow you to will allow us to basically collate all the questions. And what we'll do is, as the questions tally up, and what I will do is I will then answer the questions myself, or I will pass them on normally to one of the three panelists. Okay, and what we'll be doing is we won't be doing those as we go along. We will be doing those at the end of the session. So do not worry if you miss anything, or if you have any questions during the session, or if you have a question after we've finished, please just scan the QR, which is on the screen here. That's just my WeChat. Just send me any questions that you might have. And it could be that those questions could be answered pretty quickly by myself, or if not, maybe by one of the other panelists. So just bear in mind, we'll be doing the questions right at the end. So we'll have 4 speakers, and which will roughly take about 5 or 10 minutes each. And then finally, we will be doing the questions at the end. The questions normally will take 20 minutes. And just because we've got so many people on here, we don't need you to speak and put the cameras on and things like that, because it becomes a little bit too complicated. Just simply type in the questions into the chat. So we can just say the questions here. All right, so just put the questions here. I don't mind, you can put it directly to me, or you can put it to everybody. I don't mind, up to you how you want to pose the questions. But if you could just also just change the ID, so you've got so you've then got, so I can then refer to a specific name, that would be great. Okay, next slide, please, Carl. Okay, so first of all, why Derby? Derby is a leading online course provider in the UK. I think it's only second to Open University, which is pretty much an entirely online remote learning university. It has been working in the online space for around about 15 to 20 years, and it has plenty of engaging and content and flexible start dates. So the one thing that the University of Derby does, and it does across all of their online courses, is they have 3 start dates. So they have January, May, and September. So you can start any course, any online course, and it doesn't have to be an education course. It can be an MBA, it can be a psychology course, it can be any type of course online, and there will always be a start date that is not more than a couple of months away. So when you apply, think about when you want to start. If, for example, you get to September and something comes up, and we know that lots of things do come up here in China, and you can't really predict what's going to be happening 1 week or even 2 weeks in advance sometimes. So if you come to September and things change and you want to push it to January, all it is, send an email, ask them to change it to January start date, and if you've already been accepted for September, they will then just simply switch you to a January start date. So it has Ofsted outstanding in primary and further education phases. This means that it's basically the top level, which is the gold standard, which is the teaching excellence framework, which is what all universities and further education providers are aspiring to, and there are very few TEF gold standard providers, especially in the online space. So this is specifically for their University of Derby online courses, and it's not for their face-to-face courses, which also have a TEF gold standards. Next slide, please, Carl. So I know a lot of people will probably be asking this, so just to get this out of the way before we start, you normally need to have an undergraduate degree, a 2.2 minimum equivalent. I do know that I am finding out that there are a lot of people here in China that do have masters but don't have an undergraduate degree. Okay, it is an unusual occurrence where somebody hasn't got an undergraduate degree, but normally they will ask for a 2.2 minimum equivalent in an undergraduate degree. And what a 2.2 means is that you've got it's a 2.2 equivalent, which is basically what they grade the university undergraduate degrees in the UK. So you have a first, you have a 2.1, and then a 2.2, a third, and then a pass. Okay, so if you have a third and a pass, you don't have a 2.2 equivalent in your country where you took that degree. And what they do is that they have a database, an international database, where they compare different degrees from different countries. And if your degree equivalence is the same as a 2.2 in the UK, then that is above the threshold, and therefore you're able to start the course. If you are below that threshold, there are some things that we can do to help you get up to that standard. And they also do take into consideration if you have got a third or equivalent pass degree, but you do have a very, very strong educational background, and you have very, very good references from working in different schools and have a really good level of competency in the classroom, then we can take those into consideration. We have had students who have applied, several students who have applied in the last month, who haven't reached that 2.2 equivalent, but they have the background and the passion to do the course, and they are accepted onto the course. Another thing here, be an established teacher in a classroom context with a minimum 18 hours a week. This is pretty straightforward. This is not just minimum 18 hours teaching. This is 18 hours of teaching, planning, marking, and executing the actual classes. So it doesn't mean 18 hours within the classroom, but I know a lot of you will actually have that level of contact time within the week. A written reference from your current school. So written references from previous schools, or written references that are 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, will not be relevant. It needs to be within the last couple of weeks, ideally within the last month, and it's written by somebody within your school. It doesn't have to be the head of the school. I do realize that this is particularly problematic, especially for people that potentially are looking to move to another school, or the school is not handing out any type of written reference at all. And I know that does happen and is happening at the moment. So if that is a problem, please just reach out to me and I can certainly help with that. It doesn't have to be the head of HR, and it doesn't have to be the principal of the school. It can be a work colleague or somebody that you know that's your line manager or someone that works with you, and that will suffice. Okay. This next one, which is and has and will continue to be a problem. Okay, transcripts. So that needs to be an outline of all of the courses that you've done within your undergraduate degree and potentially your master's degree, but certainly the undergraduate degree. This doesn't have to be a physical paper copy. It doesn't need to be notarized. The only thing it needs to be is It can be a digital copy. If it's not in English, you need to translate it into English. We've got an excellent translation company that can do that for you. But the most important thing is you have a transcript if your degree is not from the UK. And that's pretty much standard. It doesn't matter what type of degree it is, and it doesn't matter, you know, if it's from outside of the UK, they will ask you for that transcript, okay? And the reason being is that it's really difficult for the university to understand what that degree is in terms of what you studied and what you covered during that degree program, because different degree programs with the same names in different countries are very, very different. So it's really important that you get the transcripts. I do understand, especially in certain countries, that getting a transcript is really, really difficult, but please try to get those as soon as possible when you start the application process. If you haven't got it and it's going to take a very long time, my suggestion always is to start the application, get the transcripts afterwards, all right? The next one there, English language competency. Okay, so you need to have documentary evidence that you have studied in English. So if your degree was not studied in English, then you will need normally to do the Derby English language test. I know it says you can also do IELTS, but please do not go away and try and do IELTS. It is expensive, it's very difficult. Well, it's not necessarily difficult, but it's really problematic in China getting it done. Do the Derby English language test. It would normally only take a couple of hours out of your weekend, and also it only costs £80. So it's really, really simple. We've pretty much got 100% success rate for it. So do not stress about the English language competency, and also don't do it before you apply. Only do it if they ask you to do it, and normally they won't ask you. So only do it if they ask that as a conditional offer. Okay, next slide, please, Carl. So pace of study, this is something that we can come on to later as well. Sophie can talk about this. We recommend 8 hours a week of study over a 10-week trimester. This is not what's written on the university website, and I understand that. And the reason why I've written 8 hours of study a week on here, this is what we have been told by people who are actually doing the course. The 20 hours on the website is for the University of Derby to actually cover themselves legally in terms of what is the maximum amount of time that someone potentially could spend a week studying to do this, okay? It's unrealistic if you're working full-time to be doing 20 hours a week of study, all right? So do not worry about that. We have found that people that do between 6 and 8 hours a week of study on a regular basis will not fall behind, okay? The assessment method is 100% coursework based, so you do not have to do any practical elements in the classroom. You're not going to be assessed for anything within the classroom, and this is all coursework based. So you have one piece of coursework which is submitted at the end of each of the 10-week trimester, and that is what you are assessed on. You do smaller units and things that build up towards that, and this is usually in order to make sure that you understand what you have to do at the end. Okay, so there's little steps as you go along. Each week you need to complete those, and at the end of it you then will have a topic in mind, something you're going to write about, and something that's related to something that you are doing in the classroom. And then finally, all of this is via the University of Derby online portal with a wide range of online tools to access materials, previous lectures and discussions. So if you do miss anything, you know, maybe you're having a really tough week, you know, you've got a lot on, maybe, you know, you've got to go out out of town, or you have to travel away for work or anything like that. Don't worry, if you have missed anything, it's all recorded and you can review it at your leisure. So sometimes the timings don't work out, and we understand that people's lives are very complicated, but don't worry, it's all there. And also within these discussions as well, what other other students have done, they've actually created WeChat groups, which then are used in a sort of very sort of collegiate and very sort of helpful manner. And I'm not part of those groups, but I've been told that the groups are really good, and everybody sort of tries to help each other through the individual units. Obviously, once COVID settles down a little bit, whenever that might be, we are really keen to do some face-to-face meetings, and maybe have some of the units and some of the lectures in a blended format. But obviously that's quite difficult at the moment, but it's something that we want to do, and I'm sure once everything settles down, we will do that in the future. Okay, next slide, please, Carl. So this is something that's I'm really passionate about. This is something that we're going to try to instigate going forwards. It is the first time that we're going to be doing this. So specifically, we're going to be offering scholarships to students beyond the ones that are currently offered at Derby. So the ones at Derby, obviously you've got the the Vice Chancellor awards. You've got other academic scholarships and hardship funds and things like that. But normally those aren't offered to students who are working online. So it is difficult to apply for those, although they do come up on a case-by-case basis. So what we're doing is, as a part of working with the University of Derby, we are going to be offering scholarships of up to 20% of the total fees. And applications will be assessed on an individual basis, and you will be asked to present your application in a short video and a presentation. So I will be sending that link, but if you want to, you can have a look at that link and see if there's any scholarships there that you think might suit your particular needs. We've got a whole range of different scholarships that are available. And what I want to do, and what we will be doing, is offering 5 scholarships for each start date. Obviously, if somebody hasn't applied for a particular scholarship, then that scholarship will go unused. But it's up to 20%, so it's well worth doing, and it is separate to the University of Derby and what they're offering. But you can also have a look at their scholarships and maybe have a look at that as well. Okay, next slide, please, Carl. Okay, so first up then is Chris. With that, I'll put you back on to co-host. Okay, so you're all good there, Chris?
Yes, I believe so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine there. So I'll just do a quick introduction of you. Yeah, this is Chris, who studied both the IPGCE and also the PGCE with QTS. He had a slightly unusual pathway to where he is at the moment, and I'm sure he will give you some more information and take it away.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to answer some of your questions today, because chances are I've already been in your position in one way or another. I know when I was looking to either do a PGCE or an IPGCE, I had so many questions, and you can't really find answers for them because a lot of them may be anecdotal or they may be highly personal. So hopefully with what I will be explaining, hopefully it can answer some questions. And if there's any questions at the end, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can. So like John just mentioned, I have a bit of an unorthodox career path. I began teaching in 2016 in China after going backpacking for a while, and I already had a TEFL and a degree, and I decided it was something I wanted to do. But within a year, I decided I need to get more qualifications, and I wasn't quite sure what to do. I ended up doing an IPGCE, an excellent decision. The IPGCE for me at the time was fantastic. I didn't need to leave work. It was flexible. It was extremely linear. It made so much sense when you're doing it. I'll try and compare these, the IPGCE and PGCE as I go. But one of the big differences and similarities between the IPGCE and the PGCE is that camaraderie, because like John was mentioning, you will be speaking to other people who are doing the course. and they'll be able to help you. They'll be able to give you advice. And in doing so, they can give you motivation as well. It sounds a little bit silly, but it happens within the PGCE as well. And that's something I didn't know before going on to a PGCE. I thought you'd kind of be left to your own devices and you might get lost in academic reading and everything. And that doesn't happen. And again, that's information that you can't really find. So that's quite useful. One of the upsides is that you can carry on working. And like John said, you don't really have to dedicate a huge amount of time to this. Excellent stuff. As long as you do little and often, you'll do really well. If you start cramming right at the end, it may be a little bit stressful with bottlenecking. But again, that happens with all qualifications, and it's no different with an IPGCE. One of the things I found really useful with the IPGCE is obviously I could work at the same time, but schools immediately would want to interview me from going from having a BA and a TEFL to having an IPGCE. So the weight of it was evident immediately, which I found fantastic. And again, anecdotal, this may not be the same for everybody and it will be extremely personal, but the largest salary increase I've seen from qualifications was from getting an IPGCE. I didn't see as much of a difference with a PGCE and QTS. So yeah, I found it incredibly useful. I've got two things written down as a slight negative for the IPGCE, and one of them is, with a PGCE and QTS, you cover basically the same theories. You cover all of the same academic reading and writing, or more or less the same. This is really useful because it will prepare you for teaching and all of the theories that you would need to know for this. But you're kind of halfway there for QTS or a PGC with QTS. But I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. I think the good segue from the IPGC onto the PGCE would be the mentors. With a PGC and QTS, you have a mentor. I think you end up having a few actually. You have a mentor for the university side of it, and you have a mentor within the classroom, which is extremely useful. You have one person for the theories and helping you get through coursework and everything like that. And on the other side, you have someone inside the classroom with you every single day, watching what you're doing, giving you pointers, giving you feedback, incentivizing you to have reflective practice, which is kind of the big, the direction PGCs are going in these days. They want to know that you are able to reflect on what you're doing and that you can make changes and adaptations to the work that you're doing. So amazing, amazing work. This is something that the IPGC will be looking at as well. And this is why I was saying that they're kind of similar with what you will be doing. But the QTS, inside school, your mentor will be watching you every single day. So I know a lot of people who end up dropping out of the course because they found a bit too much pressure from their mentors. So having a mentor, I found incredibly valuable, both of my placements. My mentors were amazing. I had really good relationships with them. But I know not everybody has that. And I've seen that on placement as well. You could be so enthusiastic about going and getting QTS with the PGC. And within the first few weeks, you may find that you don't get on with your mentor. And unfortunately, that can happen anywhere and with any type of qualification that requires oversight. I've seen it. I've seen the negative side of that, but it works really well with me. And I'm really happy about it. And I think I benefited a lot from my mentor, but that's something that you wouldn't have with an IPGCE unless you were doing with IQTS. So if it was just the IPGC, I don't think you'd have a mentor, and you definitely wouldn't have a mentor with you every single day inside the classroom pushing you, because they do. Another positive and negative about the mentors, they know you. You see them every single day. You'll spend over 3 hours a day with them in person in front of them, and they will get to know you quite well, and they will constantly be pushing you. So even if you enter onto the course with PGC with QTS, if you enter onto the course with 4 years teaching experience at a relatively high standard, the day you come in, they'll see what standard you are, and then they will keep on pushing you. It's not as if you need to meet minimum standards to be able to pass, because they want to see that you have ongoing improvement. So if they see you stagnating, they will address that very quickly, and you could still end up having difficulty on the course or difficulty graduating with QTS or being recommended for QTS if you don't make continual progress. Again, I've seen other people have these issues. Now, let me go into the PGCE a little bit more with a little bit more detail. There's huge positives and massive negatives with this. So I'll try to go through this quite quickly because I've already taken up a bit of time. With the PGCE, you get access to in-person training. So extremely valuable. You learn about how schools work, you get pushed. It's a trial by fire, and I think it's invaluable. I think it's really, really good. I think you can get similar experience in China without getting a PGCE and IQTS. I definitely think you can, because schools here can facilitate you or support you in getting QTS. So you don't need to go home to the UK to be able to get that. Or you can do it through IQTS routes. Now, let me carry on explaining about the PGC. I've written down that you get a faster learning curve. Like I was saying earlier, your mentor will be chasing you every single day. They will, if they say that you need to improve on your planning, the next day they will be looking at your planning. So the improvements and feedback will be immediate, which if you put in the effort, it's empowering. If you think you can get away without trying as hard, it can be a little bit intimidating, I'm sure. But obviously you are learning from these people, and they have a huge amount of experience, and the more you can take from them, the better that is. The negative sides of that, obviously, I've said some of the complications of having a mentor. Some of the relationships can't be excellent, and it can cause difficulty for you. I was very fortunate, like I said, but I know a lot of people aren't. But if my personal situation at the time when I did my IPGCE is I wanted to stay in China, I was teaching, I enjoyed working full-time, and I wanted an extra qualification to do in my spare time. Eventually, I realized I wanted to go from teaching younger students to teaching secondary age students. And because that's such a big jump, that's not exactly kindergarten to primary or primary to middle school, I couldn't justify that by asking for an internal transfer. So the only way for me to be able to access that huge leap was by going back to the UK and getting QTS and a PGCE, in my case, secondary geography. So that allowed me to be able to come back and get a job in humanities and geography, thankfully. But major downsides to this. With the PGCE, you can work, you can carry on earning, you can carry on living a relatively normal life, as long as you do little and often. But with a PGCE, you cannot work when you're doing this. It takes all of your time. Like I was saying earlier with the mentors, if they tell you to improve in something, they won't see improvement within 1 or 2 working days. They need to see it immediately, and you need to be able to put the effort in. So instead of it taking 8 hours a week, it kind of takes somewhere between 40 and 60 hours a week minimum. Like in terms of going to school, you're doing your work, you're doing your lessons, you're reflecting on every single lesson plan that you do. You then have to go back to more lesson plans, additional materials for students for varying levels, and then you then need to be able to write assignments. So PGC and QTS, you need to see it as 2 separate qualifications that you have going on at the same time. And it kind of feels as if you're working full-time as well, because you have to go to school 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you get to leave 4:30, which takes up the majority of your time and a lot of your energy. So it kind of feels like you're doing 3 separate things at once, along with collecting evidence, which is constant and ongoing, and it needs to be documented and recorded. Very, very complicated. Now, the biggest difference, I would say, is price. So this will be the big point I'd like to make. The PGCE and an IPGCE, I suppose the major difference is price. Both of them are extremely valuable for you, unbelievably valuable. But a PGCE with QTS, to buy into that, you need to have a sabbatical, effectively, while paying for a course. My course was £9,200. I had to go home and buy a car because I live out in the sticks in Wales. And once you kind of tally up the price of the course, the price of not working for a year, the price of living, and the price of everything else, it could very easily rack up to between £40,000 and £60,000. Unbelievably expensive. While a PGCEI, it'd be a tiny fraction of that. So for me, the only way I could justify moving from early years up to secondary was by taking such a drastic decision, or making such a drastic decision, which I'm very happy I did. But if the IQTS or the IPGCE and IQTS was available back in 2017 when I did that, I would have done that. I wouldn't have hesitated. And I think that would have saved me a massive amount of time and money. But thankfully, I have done both, and I don't regret doing either. I believe, in general, I did it completely the wrong way around. I should have done the PGC with QTS first, but I was unsure, so I ended up doing both. And just before I leave all of you, I'd like to say I really enjoy the University of Derby so much that I have signed up for a master's that is starting in September. And thankfully, I was able to carry over 60 credits from my most recent PGCE over onto the master's course. So that managed to contribute 60 credits over. So then I only need to complete 120 credits of the master's, thankfully. And like John was saying, the university is really flexible. I originally signed up for, I believe, May enrollment, but I ended up changing positions, changing jobs, and I would have liked to start the job before I start the course, and I end up doing both at the same time. So that should be fun, should be a roller coaster. But yeah, and the last thing I'd like to say before leaving you, because I've been speaking a lot, is especially within China, the baseline requirements for teaching qualifications keeps on creeping higher and higher. So even if it isn't an IPGCE with IQTS or PGC with QTS, being idle, I don't believe anybody can afford to do that, because if you aren't striving to get more qualifications, more professional development, then eventually you are running the risk of not meeting the minimum standards eventually. That's my personal belief. I have no reason, I have no hard data or anything to back that up, but I believe that the standard for teaching here keeps on getting higher and higher. And I think eventually it would be a massive shame to not meet that and enjoy teaching here. So that's everything from me. I will be reading through your questions, and hopefully I can help answer some at the end. But yeah, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.
That's really insightful, actually, and I think it's also the last point. I'm sure that Mark will sort of build on that. But certainly, as a teacher, if you aren't improving, you aren't studying, and it's not a lifelong profession, then it kind of Absolutely. Is a bit strange. It's kind of strange that you're asking other people or large groups of students to be doing the same. So I think you're completely right. I think it is it's a passion, and if you've got a passion for education and teaching, then you're always going to want to be improving yourself. So thank you very much. Cheers, Chris. Really insightful. Okay, next slide, please, Carl. Okay, so improving your career prospects. Next up is Mark Upton. Mark and I go back quite a long way. Mark was actually originally one of the heads in one of the schools that I worked at, and he was in charge of all the Nord Anglia schools as they were then, the British International School, when I arrived back in 2005. So we do go quite a long way back. It's not to say that Mark or I are very old, but we do have a long and fruitful relationship. So Mark will be talking in terms of what he would be looking at in terms of qualifications for teachers that would be applying for positions, and also, why is it important that, as Chris quite rightly said, why is it important that teachers need to be basically improving themselves and it being a sort of lifelong learning pathway. Okay, without any further ado, I'll pass you over into the capable hands of Mark.
Thanks, John. Good evening, folks, and greetings from Shanghai. I guess I'd just like to start by congratulating you all for actually being here and thinking about how you're going to develop and how you're going to progress your careers. I think the issue about lifelong learning is critical. And the point that was made about, we spend time telling kids that they should be open learners looking for new opportunities, and we should be leading by example. So I guess I should also put my hand up and say that I recently went back to one of my old universities, virtually back to Cambridge, to do another qualification on sustainability and business development, to sort of challenge myself as well. So I do think it's important that we do move forward. So moving to the sort of questions, and to give you some sort of context and feedback from myself, I was the principal of 4 or 5 schools in the UK before I came to China in 2005. And then since then, I've set up and run many groups of schools and brought hundreds of teachers over to China to teach in different international and bilingual and bicultural schools. And I have to say that with regard to, why is an IPGCE a prerequisite? Why is it really important? You have to be able to get yourself into the attention, under the spotlight, with regard to the principal who's looking to bring in more teachers. So one way of doing that is to prove your ongoing learning and your journey, because principals do want the reassurance and guarantee of ongoing research and development and additional qualifications. But I've got to say that only gets a foot in the door for you. For me, as a principal and a director of groups of schools, I only use CVs as a way to first get an indication of what people might be like. From that point on, it's all about you as the candidate, how you show me that you're worth having in my school. How are you going to make a difference in the lives of kids in a school that I'm running? And that comes down to your character. So it's about how you sell yourself, how you tell your own story. And I think when Chris was speaking a few minutes ago, explained to people the context of his development and what he gained from the University of Derby and how he's now taking a further step based on that. So what about the key skills which are essential to working in international schools? Well, I've only got 5 or 6 minutes. I could go on a long time, but I would say for me, the main ones are things like flexibility, energy, that you are culturally inquisitive, and that you're a team player. These are all critical factors working internationally. Because international education and teaching is so dynamic, and what's going on in China right now is a great example of that. There is nothing that is solid and stable. Schools need to be flexible and need to be reacting to the changes around them. And the only way a school can do that is if it is filled with staff who are adaptable and flexible and like a challenge. And that's where school cultures are very important. So that flexibility is very important. And indeed, if you're doing a course such as the one at University of Derby, then having that flexibility is going to help you. And completing the course will allow you to confidently say that you have shown flexibility. You've been able to handle different challenges while still doing your day job. Energy, vital in every aspect. But I think as well, it's important that people can mix energy for their work with energy to chill out and to relax. And I think that if you are looking at doing a qualification, you've got to feel passionately about it. And you've got to feel, yes, it's good as a qualification. Yes, it'll help you get a job. But is it something that you can learn by? Is it something that you can ask questions about? Is it something that can help you develop the skill set that you use on a day-to-day basis with kids in schools? Culturally inquisitive. I mean, I think all teachers working internationally need to be asking questions. They need to be curious about what's going on around them. And so if you're able to prove by doing an additional qualification that you are the sort of person that wants to ask questions and that questions are more important to you than answers, then you can use the proof of doing a course to support that statement about yourself. And finally, on my top list, there would be the need for people to be a team player. And again, if you are able to work collaboratively online and in your course that you're undertaking, then that will also be evidence for a principle of the sort of team player that you are likely to be if you were joining the school. So for me, those are maybe the 4 of the 15 or 20 factors, which are probably all very important. What about advice for teachers currently thinking about doing IPGCE? Well, I would say that when you're looking for any courses, you should be looking for research opportunities and being able to be challenged by what's ahead of you. When I went back and did my course at Cambridge a few months ago, it was incredibly intensive and hard work, and it was a challenge for me at my age to be able to switch in and to make sure that I gained from that opportunity. But I would say that's exactly the same for you if you're looking at doing this course with Derby, that you really want to be able to be challenging yourself. I also think that you should be looking for opportunities to carry out action research. So try to be able to talk with tutors, ask questions where you could perhaps develop a parallel action research course in your school, even if it's not part of the course. But make the course work for you. Make the course give you the sort of skills and answers that you need to develop internationally as a teacher. What about, will the IPGCE with IQTS be useful? Absolutely. But how? Well, firstly, because you will be challenging yourself. So that for me is massively important. And my advice would be that when you're looking around with your new qualification at which post you should be going for, look for schools who want your expertise and will empower you to use that with the kids. Make sure that you're asking principals questions and interviews where you are challenging them. It's not a one-way process. Just like when you're undertaking the course, that shouldn't be a one-way process. You should be challenging tutors. You should be asking awkward questions. And I think you will find that with the University of Derby, you're able to do that because what you see is what you get in terms of the people who are involved with it. I think that we all need to be able to move from play to passion to purpose. So you can't be sure what your purpose is going to be and your ongoing goals unless you're able to play about and to develop your passion. And I think you should look at any training opportunity, not just as a qualification, but as a way to play about with your passion and discover your ongoing purpose or fine-tuning your purpose. And my final point, I think, would be overall, there is now so much that is important in terms of sustainability, in terms of sustainability of opportunities for people and sustainability in terms of what we are able to pass on to kids so they, as change agents for the future, can make a real impact. Now, you may wonder, well, why am I saying this at this stage? And it's just to point out that these days, many students are choosing universities based on their sustainability record. Now, I don't know how that applies to the University of Derby, but maybe you can ask about that, or maybe John or others can find out information for you, but it would be an interesting indicator. Additionally, many teachers are then choosing their second and third and fourth schools based on what's the school's track record on sustainability, how much impact are they trying to make in the lives of kids for their futures. So I guess you could be asking those sort of questions as well. But overall, I think that you need to regard the opportunities presented by the University of Derby as an interesting challenge and ask the questions that get you the answers so that you can make the decision for your own future. That's about it, John.
Okay, thank you very much. That's really no, it's really insightful, and I like the way you've tied in the the idea of sustainability. I know that's something you're really very passionate about, and I think it is something that needs to become more and more front and center with everything that schools do, because obviously it is a lot. It's important to everybody, but obviously it's much more important in the minds, and it's much more in the forefront of minds of the younger generation than it is a lot with a lot of the teachers, and certainly a lot of the principals and owners of the school groups. So it's something that needs to be something that needs to be pushed forwards. So thanks very much, Mark. There's quite a few good questions there as well that you can take a look at in the group chat. Okay, so next slide, please, Carl. Okay, so next up is Sophie.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hi, Sophie. Yeah,
Hi.
so yeah, Sophie is currently studying with the University of Derby on the IPGCE program. She started in May, and I'm sure that she will give you some pretty good insights into how it is, and what it is actually like to study online with the University of Derby. Okay, take it away. Thanks, Sophie.
Yeah, so I started the course in May. I'm in my first module, week 8 out of 10. And so far, I'm finding it really interesting and really helpful to me as a teacher. I came to China to start teaching in October 2020. And I had my TEFL and I had a master's degree, but it was in engineering, nothing education focused at all. And I've been teaching for maybe 18 months when I realized that it wasn't a completely stable industry because I was working in a training center. So I wanted something to really back me up in case I needed to move jobs, because I knew that I wanted to teach long term and have that be my full-time career. So I was looking into different qualifications and what I could explore with those sort of options. And it was actually by chance that I saw an advert for the IPGCE at Derby. And then I was thinking, okay, should I do the IPGCE or the IPGCE with QTS? And for me, I wanted to carry on working. It wasn't really an option for me to go back to the UK to study. So the IPGCE was pretty perfect for me as well, because it allowed me to carry on working, and the schedule wasn't too bad. So the first question, how many hours a week do I need to put aside? I think John was pretty on the hit the nail on the head when he said about 8 hours a week. At the beginning, I'd say it's pretty light. We have weekly activities which take maybe 5 hours a week. But you can get started with your research because there are 2 submissions. The first one is a formative assessment, and then the final grade for your first module is based on a summative assessment, which is a 4,000 word report, and that requires a lot of research, which is actually a good thing because it allows you to develop the way you think about teaching. The current module that I'm doing is about curriculum design and development. And before doing this course, I didn't really think too much about the curriculum that I was teaching. And this module has allowed me to do my own research into that, to allow me to properly think about, okay, what am I teaching? Why am I teaching it? So not only am I gaining a qualification, I'm also developing my teaching skills in the way that I'm more introspective of the way that I teach and the content that I teach. So yeah, it's definitely around 8 to 10 hours a week, which is completely doable. I'm working full time at the moment, with 2 days off a week, and I can fit it into my schedule completely fine. There are webinars here and there, but they're all recorded. So if you miss one live, then you can always watch it back because obviously everyone's in different time zones. So yeah, 8 to 10 hours, I would say, would be a good benchmark. The next question, if I am a science or math specialist, will it be tough? So my degree was in engineering. So this is a pretty good question for me to answer. If you probably would have done some kind of dissertation with your first degree. If you've done that, it's not too intensive. It's a lot of writing, but it's nothing that you wouldn't have done as part of your undergrad. It's a lot of research, but science, maths, any STEM subject requires a lot of research as well. It's a lot of reading, same again. Any STEM subject would have reading involved. So it's not too tough, especially seeing as you already need to be a teacher to be on this course. Like, you would have had some kind of background knowledge that will allow you to get through it. It's not too tough. Next question is, how is it helping me in the classroom? I already kind of touched on this. It's allowed me to really think about the content that I'm teaching. I mean, I'm only in the first module right now, and there are 2 other modules to complete. But even in the first module, I've noticed that I'm more inquisitive with what I'm teaching, how I'm teaching, the reason why I'm teaching, and also about the students' responses to those things. So it's definitely already impacted me in the classroom, and I've only been doing this course for 8 weeks now. So it's definitely useful. Will it make you more employable? Anecdotal evidence, but I would say it's proof. Yes. Basically, as soon as I put that I was enrolled on the IPGCE course at Derby, not even completed, just rolled, as soon as I put that on my CV, I had a number of job interviews from bilingual and international schools in Shanghai, and other cities in China. It 100% makes you more employable. Like I said, I've been working in a training center, which I know is kind of a first step for a lot of teachers in China. And with an IPGCE, it really puts you to the top of the list in terms of hiring. I actually got a job offer from a pretty good and very well-known international school in Shanghai to teach primary, even though my previous experience is in teaching English, just because I'm enrolled in the IPGCE course. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing to have in your arsenal. I'll answer this question because I guess it can apply to me. Someone asked, without a mentor with an IPGCE, how much can it realistically help you improve as a teacher? So you don't have a mentor with the IPGCE at all. It's completely independent of where you're working. So it's not like the IQTS option where you will have a mentor in your school. But even so, it's so collaborative that you're talking with other people, not only in China or Shanghai, but you're also talking with people from all over the world. And you can kind of bounce ideas off each other that way. And then there are also like module leaders and tutors that you can talk to. So you can still improve as a teacher even without that. Hopefully I've kind of covered any questions that you might have. Obviously I don't have a huge wealth of experience on this, but as a new starter, that's kind of the experience that I've had, and I can't really see any negatives at the moment. So yeah, I'll answer any questions towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. That was really good, actually, and I'm really pleased that you actually touched on the mentorship parts, which I think a lot of students do really get. I wouldn't say get particularly hung up on it, but it is something that is put forward as being sort of the gold standard and being the only way that you can run an IPGCE course by other universities. And I know that that's one of the ways they can maybe potentially justify some of their rather high tuition fees. But my feeling is, and I'm quite quite open about it, is, you know, the mentorship in terms of the university, in terms of the university side of things, is only as good as the university is hands-on with the schools and with the mentors that are in the classroom and in the schools. So if the university, and at the moment with borders closed, the universities realistically can't be hands-on, for the best will of the world. If you think that speaking to somebody a couple of times a year on Zoom is hands-on and is what should be happening in terms of a fully involved mentorship program within a university, then I think really you know, it's not really good enough. And the University of Derby is very, very honest in what it provides. It doesn't say it provides things that it doesn't, that it says it provides. It says it doesn't provide any in-school mentors. And it doesn't. And a lot of the other universities do say that they do that, but I wouldn't say that it, at the moment, especially with the borders closed, it is a particularly successful and sort of worthwhile pursuit. On an aside note as well, I know that many schools, especially the likes of Wellington and Dulwich and YK Power, they actually have a mentorship program for new staff coming into their school groups that are set up.
This is
Yeah,
correct.
that are set up with. Yeah. So as Sophie well, she didn't say, she's going to Wellington, and they do have this program, and a lot of very, very good schools have these programs in place. So you don't really need to worry about the universities providing it. Okay, if you're in a good school and you're a relatively new teacher to that school, and you're in a good school, somebody will be looking after you. That's the bottom line. So don't worry about the mentorship. It is, to a certain extent, it's not really the be all and end all of doing the course. And actually, there are, you know, from a hiring perspective, it might be, you know, there might be people who are actually who know about the University of Derby course, and the fact that you're working independently and you're working collegiately with other teachers is actually an advantage. So you're not being told what to do, you're not being spoon-fed by individual tutors. Anyway, no, yeah,
sorry,
go on.
John.
Yeah.
Just to say on that, I mean, I think you're right. I think by doing the course, you're actually providing the school mentors with the curriculum to actually help you develop. And I think that's something that they would really appreciate. So, you know, I think you would see it working well in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so next slide, please, Carl. Okay, so what we've got now is I will, if the co-hosts can put their videos on, that would be great. Okay, and Sophie as well. Okay, so what we'll do is we will ask questions. Most of the questions are pretty general questions, and they can be answered by individuals. I probably won't, because there's 4 of us, I probably won't. If there's anything specific about the course, then I can chip in. But for the most part, I think it's probably better that we get the experts talking about it. So if we start with actually, we'll start with Mark then. Is the IPGCE viewed favourably by UK curriculum schools?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on which school that you're talking about. And I think that, you know, this is where teachers can use going for the qualification as a litmus test for the schools that they're looking at. Because if they come across schools who don't view it as being useful and legitimate, then I think that they should be looking elsewhere. Because, you know, schools need to be meeting staff where they are at and taking qualifications that they've embarked upon as being valid data supporting why this person is a good teacher for the school.
Yeah. Chris, would you like to add anything more?
I don't see how anybody would think that it wouldn't be valuable in any sense, even if you had existing master's qualifications and you ended up getting something like a PGCE. You're topping up your knowledge of theory, and then you still have to apply it in practice. So I can't see how anybody would ever see it in any sort of negative light, especially as you do need to carry on striving and getting better throughout your entire teaching career, which is kind of the whole point of teaching, isn't it? To be lifelong learners. I don't see why anybody would ever see it in anything other than a positive light.
Mm.
But yeah.
So Sophie, would you like to add your recent experience?
Yeah, I just want to add that the actual content of the IPGCE is really useful for teaching in international schools. A lot of the questions that you need to answer, a lot of the content is focused on an international setting, and obviously the course is a UK course, so it will be recognised by UK-led schools. And yeah, like what's been already said, you're developing yourself as a teacher, and it's an internationally recognized course that focuses on teaching in international schools. So I can't see why any school would look at it and say, no, we don't want that, especially if it's a British-led school.
Absolutely. Okay, so another question that was posed. I know with a lot of people, a lot of uncertainty here in China at the moment, and what have you. With the IPGC course, can it be used abroad in other contexts, Mark?
Yes, again, I would say that it's about how you tell your story. As I mentioned before, the qualification gets you, in effect, your foot in the door. You have to use the qualification to tell your story to the potential employer. And that's what people need to hear. So it's not so much the qualification, it's how you've taken that and developed and what you've found out about yourself and how you can use that in your future teaching. So those are going to be the key factors that come across.
Chris?
Again, I don't see how it could ever be seen in anything other than a positive light. I know loads of teachers who ended up leaving China due to lockdowns, and a lot of them had PGCEs, and they've managed to find positions in other schools in other countries in Europe or other parts of Asia with no problems at all. But obviously that does go into your experience, yourself, and other qualifications. But like Mark was just saying, this is your foot in the door.
And how would you view it, Sophie, if you were you're obviously not going to be leaving anytime soon, but if you looking to the future, what's your thinking?
My thinking is that it's an internationally recognized qualification that will allow you to teach in most countries. Without the QTS, it's difficult to teach in the UK. But there is also the option to do the assessment only route once you've completed the IPGCE, if you plan to go back to the UK. But any other countries, obviously it depends on their exact requirements for certain schools there. But yeah, it will definitely be recognized internationally. I know that a lot of the people on my course, they don't only work in Asia, they work in Europe, they work in South America. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile if you want to work anywhere in the world, really.
Yeah, and I think I'm just sort of picking up on that as well, what Sophie mentioned there, in terms of the qualification as it stands at the moment. We've been talking specifically about, well, for the most part, we've been talking about the IPGC only, which is the sort of traditional route, which is the less involved route that we're talking about. But obviously with the new IPGC, with IQCS, which is essentially the same as doing a PGC with QTS in the UK. That qualification, which starts in September, will be equivalent to somebody sitting that same course and enrolling and completing that same course in Derby or in any university in England. Okay, so if you do that course and you are looking specifically, and I know we've got a number of teachers who are looking to either go to the US or looking to go to New Zealand, Australia, the UK. It is a little bit more difficult with the IPGCE only route, but I'm pretty confident from mid 2023, and I'm not speaking too much out of turn here, although I know Andy would probably slap my wrists. But the IQTS only, which will be equivalent to the assessment only QTS in the UK, will become available in 2023. It's not going to be in January. Hopefully it will be in May, but it will certainly be on, it definitely will be on stream in September. So that will be sort of that will be sort of the final sort of piece in the jigsaw, which will mean that you are equivalent to somebody back in the UK. And the other sort of QTS abroad programs and things like that are offered. I know that they will be closed down over the next 6 months because they are kind of exploiting a loophole which the UK government didn't think or didn't realize it could be exploited. So yeah, there's not a lot of oversight with a lot of those courses at the moment, and that's probably why they're not very popular. So that's why the government's doing it. And you know, if you do that, and the IQTS only program, when that comes on stream, you will be equivalent to somebody in the UK or anywhere else in the world. So yeah, okay. Next one then. Is it suitable for somebody who is looking to teach IB diploma or A levels or AP? Mark?
Yep, because I would say that ultimately we're not teaching different subjects or curriculum, we're teaching kids. So, you know, it's about the skills that we will develop. So short answer, definitely.
And from your perspective, Chris, I know obviously you went back and did the PGC with QTS, so I'm kind of, but if you had already got experience in teaching in the secondary phase, would you have then gone back and done? I know it's not really a particularly fair question. Would you still have gone back and done the PGC with QTS or not?
Probably not, no. I think because the only reason why I went back is because I was making such a drastic leap in positions, just purely from a competency standpoint. If I was already in that position where I was already teaching the subjects I would have liked to have taught at the level I would have liked to have taught, I wouldn't have gone back to the UK. And the likelihood as well, that would have worked out for me because I could have done the IPGC at the time. And in those schools that are teaching at that level for those courses, they might have been able to support me through QTS anyway. So if I was already teaching at that level, I wouldn't have gone back to do the PGC. It was just a gateway for me to be able to get to where I needed to be at the time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think yours is quite a specific, quite an unusual, but then also lots of other things kind of fell into place as well in terms of there being COVID, etc. So there were lots of other sort of moving parts within that. Okay, so next question then to Sophie. The last one there from Stuart was saying that you've been working in a language centre and are currently teaching strictly in an ESL environment. So do you find that the knowledge you are in, that you are sort of accessing and using practically is, do you have enough experience working in a language centre to actually do well in the course? I think that's pretty much what the question's asking. I think that's what the question's asking anyway.
Yeah. So working in a training centre, it's primarily ESL, but with some extra skills added in there, like some drama, some primary, some holistic skills. but yeah, it's actually been it's been very interesting to dissect the curriculum in the training center that I'm currently at, because it's not presented in the same way that a traditional school is. So I think it makes you think more deeply about exactly what a curriculum is, exactly what you're teaching, exactly why you're teaching. Because whereas if you work in a school, they'll say, okay, we follow XYZ curriculum, we follow this, we have all of these documents, blah, 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 that can show you what the curriculum is. And in my current module, that's not completely available in a training center. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that you have to think more deeply, which is, I would say, would be a benefit rather than a hindrance, because you're getting more out of the course. Where some people who, if they're working in a school, can just, I don't know, ask their principal and say, okay, so what curriculum do we follow and what model was it, does it follow? And they can be saying, yeah, it follows blah, 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 blah. I asked my principal and she said, curriculum? um,
So
so
you're the expert. Is that what you're saying?
I think it was just that there wasn't a formal name for the content that we taught. So I had to do my own work to delve into it, which actually made me understand the content a lot more, because I had to pinpoint exactly what they were using to develop it, why this content was chosen. So it's definitely applicable to my current situation. But also what I'm learning now, because I'll be transitioning from ESL to primary, is that it's very useful in looking at a new environment as well. So it's preparing me more for that transition. So if you're looking into doing that in the future, I definitely recommend this course.
Yeah, very good. Mark, would you like to add anything more to that?
No, I think that's a fairly full answer there.
That is a very, very full answer. Anything you'd like to add, Chris? Anything more you'd like to add?
Sorry, no, I'd just say deciding on whether or not it's, from my perspective, from a PGCEI or a PGCE, it just depends on your personal circumstances. I think both are amazing options, and I think you'll do well whichever you choose.
Yeah. No. I think it's a valid. I think that's a very valid, very valid series of questions. No, very good. I feel quite convinced that I will take this course. So there we go. That's not me saying it. That's somebody else. Anyone got any other questions? These.
I saw someone mention a VPN.
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah.
The course materials that Derby provide, it's all accessible without a VPN. The only issue that some people have had is that some of the course material is supplemented with YouTube videos, which would require a VPN to watch. But some people have been working around that by having like other students download the video and upload them onto other platforms and things like that. So there are workarounds if you don't have a VPN. And I would say 95% of the course is accessible without a VPN. I'm not sure about the research front. It depends what websites you'll be using to research, but the module leaders so far and the course tutors have been kind of pushing us to use the library website as our main source of information for research purposes, which doesn't require a VPN. But if you wanted to do extra research from outside of the library resources, then you might have a bit of a struggle with finding information. But I'm sure you could work around that. That would be the case for any course, not just Derby.
No, I think yeah, and I think that there's more than enough materials on the University of Derby platform that you don't really need to start looking outside of that, because I think they've got access to all of the publications and what have you anyway. There's one just final question. I know that this is specifically for the IPGCE with IQTS. So just to sort of clarify what that is, I know I probably should have apologized at the start. I'm just give my apologies to Andy Bloor, who is the coordinator for the IPGCE with IQTS program. He's actually been called into a meeting with the Department of Education this afternoon. So unfortunately, he's not able to make it today, but I've posted a video in the group chat. I also will publish that video, and it's available on our channels, and he can talk through the IPGCE with IQTS. But just to sort of reiterate, they are two different courses. The IPGCE with IQTS is a very, very different beast to the IPGCE. So it is very similar to what Chris was talking about in terms of the PGCE with QTS in the UK. It is a full-time course. You are able to continue working in school. It will be tough, but what we're asking schools to do is to actually take teachers off timetable 1 day a week. Okay, so we're wondering how that's going to pan out, but that's kind of that's what the university wants. We'll see how that can be timetabled and how that might work out with specific schools, but I think that might be quite difficult going forwards. But essentially, it is the same as somebody doing a PGCE with QTS, primary or early years in the UK, and you will qualify exactly the same as somebody starting the course in Derby, and at the end of it you will be able to go and work anywhere in the world. So if you wanted to go back to the UK, and essentially the course is designed to increase the number of teachers that potentially could go back to the UK. Obviously a spin-off is that people outside of the UK will become qualified teachers by doing this qualification, but to be perfectly honest, the government don't really care so much about teachers staying abroad and working as qualified teachers. They really want people to be coming back to the UK and filling, the tens of thousands of vacancies that are open every, at the start of it, well, throughout the year. So this is the reason they're doing the course. Obviously, the spin-off benefit is that people abroad can do it, and they don't have to go and live and work in the UK if they don't want to. But it's equivalent, and because it's equivalent, that's why it's so much more expensive. It's the same price as somebody doing it in the UK, which is £9,250. So because it's the same course, they have to charge the same amount. But because there is no equivalent to the IPGCE in the UK, that's why they're able to price it differently to other courses. Yeah. So there are WeChat groups with lots of information. Yes, Anis, we can add you to those. We can add you to those groups. Just if you are watching on your phone, I know it's a little bit difficult to actually scan the QR code if you're watching on your phone, but you can screenshot this, and then you should be able to get this if you can, or you can just add me on WeChat if you want to. Yeah, just add me on WeChat if you want to, that's fine. And I will add you to all the groups, okay? So that's my personal WeChat. I don't want to type the incorrect one for the other one. So if you just add me on there, I can just I can flick you across to the Derby groups, and you can get all the information there as and when you need. Is there any other questions that people have a burning desire to answer? Doesn't seem like it. Okay, so if there are any other questions, please just reach out to me by all means and ask the questions. Take a look at the video that Andy has kindly done for us which explains the IPGCE and the IQTS very, very clearly and very, very concisely in around about 10 to 12 minutes. Obviously, the application for that course, the IPGCE with IQTS, is closing it tomorrow, although it may well be extended. So that is kind of very, very short notice. So I'm assuming that most people on this call will be looking to do the IPGCE only course. And the closing date is next month, but again, and I'm sure Sophie will definitely concur with me and agree with me, do not leave it until the last minute. Sophie, would you agree with that?
Don't do that.
Yeah,
get it in as early as possible to save not only because they'll consider you and like give you an offer early on, but just to save yourself the stress. Don't apply too late.
Yeah, never wiser words spoken. So yeah, please apply early. Try to get as many documents together as possible. If you haven't got all of the documents together, still apply, and then you can add the documents in afterwards. Okay, so if you need anything, please just reach out to me on WeChat. And I think that's pretty much it for this evening. Thank you very much to Chris, Mark, and Sophie. Thank you also for Carl for being wonderful on the slides in the background there. Thank you very much, everybody, for asking excellent questions and being here for the what is close to an hour and a half. Time flies. Time flies when you're having fun. Okay, thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
And bye, everybody. And if you need anything, by all means, reach out to us, and I'm sure we can help you with any questions you've got. Okay.